Perfect. Hopefully that's perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Kristen Brogy. I am here with the Plainfield Public Library, and we are in partnership with the New Jersey State Library running a program called the Labor and Literacy Library Program. And one of the things that we are doing through that program is supporting libraries using Northstar to help increase digital literacy program at those libraries. So I know that some of you are here through the Labor and Literacy Library Program. Some of you are here through your Northstar license and information that was sent to you by the New Jersey State Library. Both of those are absolutely fabulous. Those of you who came, pardon me, through the New Jersey State Library Northstar license, we sent you out some information regarding the Labor and Literacy Library Program, because in addition to Northstar as a way to increase digital literacy, Plainfield is offering other workshops, other programming that you might choose to use to support increasing digital literacy initiatives within your library. So I believe that most of you received that yesterday. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. I just wanted to give you a quick picture right now of the difference between just the Northstar program itself and then the Labor and Literacy Library Program. And Sarah, Colleen, and myself, Kristen Brogy again, will stay on at the end if anybody wants to talk a bit more about that program. The other thing I want to ask of folks before you get started, just to help us keep track of what libraries we have here with us, is that if you could go to your Zoom box, point to it, you'll see 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots and choose rename, and just add your library name to the end of your name, just so we know who's here. Or if it's just your library name, if you could add your name to the beginning of it, just so that we, again, know who's here. And then we are going to jump in and get started. So again, we're introducing our Getting Started with Northstar program. And I put this together because I feel like Northstar sounds like this little program of, hey, digital literacy through the web, my patrons can sit down, they can go in front of a computer and just figure out what to do. And it actually does a lot more than that. So there are 4 workshops in the Northstar programming that we put together. One's just getting started with Northstar. And in this session, what I want to do is I want to talk about what is Northstar? What are the different parts of Northstar? What's the Northstar online learning? Am I going to use assessments? Wait, there's curriculum. What are all of these? So I want to make sure everybody understands what they are. And then also to start deciding what you're going to do with Northstar in your library. So today's session is just getting started with Northstar. There's another session on supporting your learners. So the people who are taking Northstar training or using Northstar in your library, Northstar calls them learners. All learners need to have a Northstar account. So I want to help people understand how to set up learners, how to help them use their Northstar accounts to the fullest. We're then going to have a session on assessments, and we'll talk more about the different Northstar assessments briefly during this session, but whether or not you want to start offering proctored assessments in your library and what are the advantages to proctored assessments. And then our last session is regarding the Northstar curriculum, which is curriculum based off of the online learning programming in Northstar that you can use as in-person training. And it's super easy to follow. And again, we'll talk about all of those in a little bit of detail, but today's session really is focused on making sure everybody understands all of these parts of Northstar so that you know what you should be doing with it and what you can be doing with it. Excuse me. So before we get further into the session, though, I really want to know where everybody is with Northstar. And we have a pretty small group of folks with us. So what I'm going to do is I'm real quick, just going to ask if you wouldn't mind, as we go around, just unmute yourself and let us know what library you're from. What is your role in that library? Do you have Northstar right now? Do you know who your administrator is? And really, what are you hoping to get out of this workshop? I know it sounds like a lot, but just real quick, I would say I'm Kristen Brogy. I am a digital literacy instructor at Plainfield Public Library. We are using Northstar. We use both the online learning, we proctor assessments, we use the curriculum as well, and we do it in English and Spanish at our library. And I could tell you that Colleen is one of my Northstar administrators. So I just want to hear from the rest of you what it is you expect. And I've got pictures of you all on my screen right now. And Maria, since you always log in first, you get to start for us. So if you would just real quick, let us know who you are and what you're up to with Northstar.
Hi, my name is Maria, and I work at the Cumberland County Library. I am the lab instructor here for classes, whether it's individual or full groups. We do use Northstar, but I don't think I'm using it to its fullest potential. I am the administrator for the Northstar as well. And I just hoping this will help me get to know what I'm not using on the Northstar that I should.
Sounds good. Thanks, Maria. By the way, as we go through and do our introductions, it's okay if your answer is, I've been hearing about Northstar and I know nothing about it, and I don't even have a license. Totally cool. This is still a great session for you to be in because it's going to give you some of those understandings. So Jill, I see you next in my list. I hope you're okay giving us a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Jill Faraday. I'm the director of South Orange Public Library. And I have other team members here as well. And we are eager to learn about all the things that Northstar has to offer. We just signed up last week. So yeah, we just got our license, and I'm just very eager to add this to our computer programs that we offer to our patrons.
Perfect. Jill, you got your license. Do you know who your administrator is?
I think it's probably in my email, but no.
Okay. No worries. It's not a problem. It's going to help you in the future. And so as I talk about administrator roles, I just like to know whether you even know sort of where you're at yet, because the licensing process is a little strange. You partner with the state library partners with Northstar, you get in. So it's probably in your email, and I can, if you log into Northstar, I can also show you where it is at some point. So I just wanted to make that point.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. Tally, would you go next?
Yes. You said me, right?
Patricia, yeah, you go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. So, sorry, I'm Patty Banks from Plainfield Library. I am a new addition to the literacy team here. So I'm just here to learn more about Northstar and how it's going to be a resource for our library and our clients.
Sounds good. Yeah, we threw Patty into day 4, I think we're on.
Yes.
Day 4, we've got her on our session. She's got to learn everything. Fabulous. Great. And then a good point, anybody who can't speak out loud, you are welcome to also type all your answers into chat for us. There's somebody on South Orange Public Library. It's okay if you don't want to speak. I can also take Jill's answers as the same as your answers. I think I have, is it Glitza? Did I say that right? You're on mute.
Let me.
Perfect.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good morning. My name is Glitza Gutierrez, and I'm the Assistant Library Director for Fairview Public Library in Bergen County. We just recently saw the link. We're partnering with the state library. And to be honest with you, I know a very little bit, but I'm very excited to learn everything there is to know about Northstar. I would like to share this with our community, and we think it'll be a really good asset for them, for people going back to work, or even for those moms that are just trying to learn something new. And So I don't know who the administrator is. I'm sure it's in that email, but I'm hopeful that you guys can bring me up to speed.
Absolutely. We're excited to help you out with it. Thank
Thanks.
you. Absolutely. And let's go ahead to Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Lafazan. I'm the Assistant Director at the Springfield Free Public Library. I recently heard about Northstar from the New Jersey State Library Director Training. I don't know if anybody was on that, but I had seen lots of emails about it. And I came from 14 years at a college library, so I'm a very, very big proponent of teaching digital literacy beyond K-12 and beyond college. So I think it's an awesome opportunity. I recently applied and got it last week. I got all the emails. I don't know who my administrator was, so I'm similar to Glitz. So like we're just getting started with everything with Northstar. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely welcome. Emily from Morris County, I believe it says.
Hey, is my mic working?
Now I hear you, yes. Oh, and then I
Okay.
just saw that you typed in. It's up to you if you want to.
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure if the mic was actually functioning because it wasn't yesterday.
Frustrating.
Yeah, so Morris County actually has a license, but for a variety of reasons, including staffing, we haven't really been able to implement it. We have looked at it. With the current staffing we have, we probably could go ahead at this point. And we just wanted to know more about, specifically how do you even add this to your website, and
Yep.
how do you promote it to the community, and what's the best way to actually begin, because we already teach beginner classes in person.
Wonderful.
So I don't know if we could, add a whole other full-fledged program. We might have to do it in maybe baby steps. But the curriculum was really interesting to look at, and I think the Spanish language would be an asset as well.
Yes. Yep. There's a lot of good parts to it. And I think that's important for everybody to hear is baby steps is often how you have to go. And we have some other libraries that we've worked with that are small with very small staffs, and how they've been able to utilize Northstar as well on a small basis. And we can talk a little bit more at the end of the session on things like that. So let's definitely remember that when we hit the questions part at the end, let's make sure we talk about, well, how do I handle this if I don't have enough staff? And we'll talk about advertising as well, with which Northstar makes easy for you. So I will point out where you can find all of their advertising brochures and flyers. And then I think, Tali, are you able to speak now? Perfect.
Hello, my name is Tally. I am over from the Burlington County Library West Hampton branch. I am a digital learning associate in our lifelong learning department. And so we actually have a Northstar license, but we haven't been utilizing it. And I think it just kind of like, we haven't been able to implement it yet. So we kind of want to make that more involved, especially because I'm starting virtual instruction. So we're hoping to get that going. I do not know who our administrator is actually. I think it's listed in the email they sent me when I signed up.
Yes. And if anybody who has a user ID, as we get towards the end of this session, I'll show you where you're going to be able to find the admin. Actually, even if you don't have an ID, I know where you can find your administrator name.
Yeah, and I definitely like to figure out more how we can utilize it either with in-person instruction or with virtual in the future.
Great. All right. Thank you. I think I got everybody. And it sounds like a lot of us are really on the same page in that we're just trying to figure out what it is that we want to do with Northstar and what we should be using it for. You will receive emails from Northstar regarding their training sessions as well. A lot of the information that I'm going to share with you is in their training as well. I typically am trying to focus this onto how are you going to use this in the library? This is how we used it in our library. So I'm really going to focus more on libraries as a group, whereas Northstar itself, when they do their training, it's a little bit more focused on, we've got 20,000 people. That's not that many, but we've got all these people on this session. I'm going to share everything I can So I went through those sessions and I'm sort of pulling the things that confused me and making sure I focus them for you all a tiny little bit more. It does not hurt to attend their sessions as well. The more you understand it, the better off you're going to be. Okay. Before we jump in and get started, does anybody have any sort of specific questions that they want to call out? Go ahead, Maria.
The one thing I do want to find out is for the Spanish section, even though I don't speak Spanish, how I can use that, because I have one person that can actually use that right now.
It's really covered in the next class, Maria. If I forget to tell you how to switch the language to Spanish before you leave today, like, don't let me forget. All right. So when we ask for questions, I'll try to remember, but it's super simple. So it's a huge, easy way to get Spanish speaking folks that you can't support right now some digital literacy training. Okay, cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
I have one question, and I don't know if you guys would be able to help me, and I apologize if it's a dumb question.
Just ask it.
I really want to get this implemented onto our website.
Okay, do you know, I'm going to show you what's called your location specific URL on Northstar. So you use that link, whoever is your website administrator will add that link onto your website with whatever other information you want. And then that's a super simple way to do it. So I will get into there and I'm going to call this out during the session. It's already in my notes to be able to tell you all that part of it. It's so important. So that was a perfect question.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Bonnie, yes, it's something that, how do I start with this? What do I do? Where do I get people to it? So those are some of the things we're going to talk about today. So perfect. Glad you asked. All righty. So goals for this session, in addition to all of the things that you guys are asking, these are the things that I want to make sure you know before we leave. I want to make sure that you know what Northstar Online Learning is. I want you to know what the assessments are, and I want you to know what the curriculum is. We're not going to go into a ton of detail on how to use all of those, but I want you to understand the differences because that's going to help you decide, where do I start? Do I have goals for where I want to go, or am I going to just start with online learning? I want to be sure that you know how to get into your admin portal. Your admin portal, when I show it to you, it is overwhelming the amount of amazing information that's in there. So we're going to talk through that part a little bit, because that way you'll understand what you're going to find in it and how you're going to use it. And then I also want to show you the actual Northstar Online Learning. They call it NSOL. It stands for Northstar Online Learning. And I want to show it to you so you'll be able to, at the end of the session, complete an online learning lesson for yourself and hopefully also complete an assessment so you are comfortable looking at what Northstar looks like. So before we get into this, especially because I've got a bunch of newbies, which is fabulous, I'm just going to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what Northstar does, what it is, how it's going to get used. Many of us think of Northstar just as an online digital literacy program. But as we're already talking about, it's more than just online modules. So we're going to do a quick overview. You're going to learn throughout today that in addition to being a web-based program that's designed to let all of your learners take assessments or tests, pre-tests to determine their base skill level, they can then take the self-paced online training model. Based on their assessment, they will know what they need to do with the online training module so that they don't have to do every single lesson through it. That's going to let them build up their digital literacy skills. So they take assessments, they then take the online training, they can then take another assessment at the end. That's going to help them track their growth and then also earn certifications through Northstar. Northstar is pretty easy to set up because it's all web-based and most of the setup is done by Literacy Minnesota. That is the organization that owns Northstar, that created Northstar. At your location, you can have 1 to 3 administrators for your site. I highly recommend having at least 2 people who are your Northstar admin. And the administrative functions are not terribly difficult. An admin can do everything else anybody can do in Northstar. They also can add staff to your library account. They can change your location information. I think there's a third thing that I'm blanking on right now, but it is super important to know who your admin is. And again, we'll figure out how you can all figure that out, but it's very important to know who your admin is so that they can add you as a staff member in your library. And again, we'll talk through all of that later on. In addition to the self-paced online training modules, the NSOL as it's called, there are resources in Northstar called the Northstar curriculum that allows all of the skills that the online learning teaches to also be taught in person. You can do it one-on-one teaching in person. You can do it in a group or a classroom setting. We have somebody here with us today who's starting to do virtual training, but that you can still use all of the Northstar curriculum as a way to do in-person instruction, sort of like I'm here on this screen teaching you about Northstar right now. So the curriculum allows for an instructor to teach the Northstar skills versus your students doing it online. And a lot of times they're used in conjunction with each other. An instructor uses the curriculum and assigns the Northstar modules for their students as a practice. And then Northstar also has some resources that allow both the learners and the staff to track the progress of the learner. The learner has a dashboard that I'll show you to show everything they've completed, how they've been scoring on their assessments. As a staff member, I can see specific learner information. I can see my site information to see what training modules are used the most, what assessments have been taken by learners at my site, etc. So big picture in Northstar is most of us are going to use NSOL, the Northstar Online Learning, but I want you to start thinking about assessments and how assessments can lead to certification for your learners. And then also you might decide that you want to use the Northstar curriculum. So I want you to have those 3 things in your head as we work through our training today. Northstar is set up based on the assumption that a learner is going to start with an assessment and then possibly get a certification. So I want to talk about the assessments first and what they're going to be used for. Of course, assessments can easily be used to identify where do I want my learners to start? What is it that I want my learner, or what is it that my learner needs to learn? So most of the time we ask our learners to start by taking an online assessment through Northstar to see what it is they need to learn. But these assessments have a lot of other things you can use them for. So just to get everybody thinking, just to give me a chance to have a sip of my coffee, who has other ideas of what you can use some online assessments for, the computer assessments? No, yes. Go ahead, Maria.
What I use it for, excuse me, is I have people that come in and tell me they do know about this type of stuff on the computer. So this helps me to gain an idea of where they're lacking their skills. So I may have to do a special class to update what skills they don't know. So with that assessment, they'll take it and they'll say, oh, I know how to power on the computer. I know how to, power off, or I know how to open a program. And honestly, some of them don't. So
Right.
This assessment, it really helps guide me where I need to help them, what they need to learn better. So I really do like that part of the program.
And so if you remember at the beginning, Maria said she doesn't really use Northstar a lot. So I can't remember, Maria, if you use the actual online learning tools, but you're using those assessments to help you gauge what you're teaching in your classroom. So that's great. Any other thoughts?
Hi, it's Bonnie. I was thinking that many of our users who ask for this kind of training and use don't even really know how to use the computer. So maybe a class to start them so they could do the self-guided later and do an assessment to see whether even to teach them even how to get to the website and the browser even to begin.
Yep. And one of the things you're going to find in the resources that Northstar offers is they have paper screeners. There's a piece of paper or a PDF you can print out to do a screening of a person who wants to take Northstar to see if they even have the computer skills, or maybe we need to start them with like a mouser-size program or a keyboarding program. So the assessments are really helpful at starting to give us information on all of our different users. Any other ideas before I share my thoughts with you? All right, everybody's looking down, all the on-screen folks, so that's fine. What I'm going to do now, I'm nodding. So some of the other things that the assessments are great for, a lot of times when our students are coming to us with not the most intense computer knowledge, and even though you're seeing their progress, they're not seeing progress. Taking an assessment, even if they don't pass it, if they took the assessment and scored, you know, a 27, and now they've done a week's worth of computer training and they can score 62, that's huge progress in a week. Like, you've doubled your knowledge. So sometimes taking an assessment is just to show an individual how much knowledge they've actually gained. Northstar has the ability to allow you to proctor assessments. And again, we'll talk about proctoring a little bit later, but if you proctor assessments for your patrons or for your learners and they pass, they get a certificate. So let me just real quick pop that. The certificate that they receive, it looks a little bit like this. So they have a paper certificate that says that they've completed whichever computer classes we proctored their test on. And then they can put that on a resume or on jobs. You know, it actually gives them the ability to prove that they have some sort of computer knowledge. And then sometimes you might want to use Northstar just to test other people's skills. So for example, we have a library in North Jersey that wants to start using Northstar. They don't have a lot of staff, and so they've started to get volunteers who are going to come in and support some of the computer training. Well, in order to make sure the volunteer can support computer learning with patrons, we need to make sure they know how to use a computer. So even using the assessments to assess skill level for something like that is going to be super useful, because how many of us can real quick think, okay, what are the things I need to make them show me how to do if I have somebody coming in to support computer training? Whereas using these assessments just give you a great way to do that. Assessments can be proctored or unproctored. Unproctored assessments, so assessments that your learners just simply take on the computer, they can still pass those assessments. And if they pass their assessment, they receive a badge. Has anybody ever heard of badges? I see a couple nods. Who wants to try to give us a quick definition of when you earn a badge? Patty, I did see you nodding.
Yes, so there's different, I guess, levels or opportunities to unlock different accomplishments. And so with each accomplishment, you earn a badge.
Correct. So badges, they're also referred to as, yes, Glitz, a gamification. Badges, they're also referred to as micro credentials. They're these little pictures that link to a website, and you can put these little pictures or badges in your LinkedIn account. You can put them on social media. When somebody clicks them, they link to the website and say, these are all of the skills Kristen had to prove knowledge of to receive this badge. And it's one of those things where it gamifies training. Oh, I need to earn more badges. We, through our labor and literacy library program, provide badges for different classes that other libraries come and take. Again, because it's fun and it allows proof that you have completed specific tasks. So an unproctored assessment earns badges for people if they pass them. Passing score on Northstar, excuse me, the passing score on Northstar is an 85%, which does seem a little bit difficult, but the passing score is really proof that you have shown, I know this basic email skills. I know how to use my Microsoft Word. So the badges and the certifications are a little bit difficult to earn, but it's definite proof. Unproctored assessments, anybody can take. We have a session later on proctoring assessments, and proctoring assessments, it's not difficult. It takes human capital. It takes somebody in your library to go through the, relatively short proctoring training, but then to watch somebody while they're taking a Northstar test. So not all libraries have the ability to proctor assessments, but if you choose to give your learners proctored assessments, they will also be able to earn that certificate. And those certificates are useful, again, because they can put them on, or they then can say, I have this actual certification versus a badge. Questions on assessments before we move on? How do you handle learners that don't have the tools, i.e. hardware, internet, or software available to learn or practice outside of the library? That's a great question. We have, at Plainfield, we have what we call a labor and literacy lab, where patrons can come and sit and use those computers. You can also add Northstar to your public computers in the library. So if you have public computers available, you can let them work on Northstar on those public computers at any time. Does it help a little bit, Emily? And then other questions?
I do. My question is with regard to the proctored and unproctored assessments.
Yes.
So if we have a user that does unproctored assessments and then receives their certificate, is there a difference in that certificate, or is it just saying that this person just received it?
The unproctored assessment gives a badge, just a little thingy, a picture they can put somewhere. You have to have a proctored assessment to earn the certificate. And then you could say, I have the basic computer skills certificate from Northstar. So if I took, and I'm going to pop the certificate back up so I can look at the exact wording. If I had taken the basic computer skills class, or I'm sorry, test, and not had it proctored, I would get a badge that says I have completed basic computer skills, or I've passed a basic computer skills class. I just can't say I have a certificate in basic computer skills. And the wording in that just for employers tends to be a little bit different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great questions.
Jill also has a question in there. Sorry.
What is the average and max time to take an assessment? The average time to take an assessment is about 25 minutes. I have taken all of the assessments. I can tell you, though, that my digital literacy skills, I'm going to rate them at pretty high. So the assessments take me like 15 minutes to do each of them. Average time is 25 minutes. There is not a maximum time. I mean, it should not take somebody more than an hour. It should take about a half an hour. That's a great question. And Alex, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Since this is offered through the New Jersey State Library, this Northstar program, and I know that they work in conjunction with the Thomas Edison State College.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of these proctored certificates available for can they be assessed for any type of like credit for the patrons?
That is a fabulous question, and I'm going to ask Sarah to just jot down for me because that's something I would need to do a little bit of research on.
Yeah, I'll jot that down, but it may be up to the college, I think.
There are, and I'm blanking on standards that are listed within Northstar that talk about what the information links to. I don't know how that relates back to college credit. I'll get a little bit more information for you on that, though. That's a really good question as well.
The reason why I ask is when I was in the military, we used to take these things called CLEP tests. I don't know if they still exist. And it was a similar thing. You can take an assessment of your knowledge and have it assessed for college credit. So
Yeah.
I know, because I do a lot of work with the patrons at our library. I know that even if they could use it at like one of the community colleges, that would be something that would be really beneficial to them.
Yeah, I will look into that a tiny bit more. And it's one of those things where I'm going to see what they're doing in Minnesota first, because Northstar is based in Minnesota and it's just expanded, especially throughout the pandemic. Like the usage of Northstar has expanded, and then also the acceptance of these certificates for certain things have expanded as well. So even if it's not right now in New Jersey, something that a lot of colleges know about, it may move forward that way. And if we can see it happening somewhere, often you can then say, hey, so-and-so state does this at their community colleges. We should start doing it at ours. Good questions. Anybody else before I move on to the Northstar online learning? All right, well, we can always jump back if we need to. So we talked about assessments. An unproctored assessment only earns a badge if it's passed. A proctored assessment also earns you a certificate. Typically, you take the assessment first. After the learner takes an assessment, they can then move on to the NSOL. That's what Northstar calls it. It stands for Northstar Online Learning. Northstar Online Learning are computer-based, self-directed learning modules that users or that patrons are going to use to learn a bit more. The online learning in Northstar is broken into 3 modules. There's one on essential computer skills. There's another on essential software skills, and then using technology in daily life. Each of those modules, the computer skills, the software skills, and then the using technology, is broken down into different lessons. So your essential computer skills is how to use a computer, how to understand how to turn it on and off, and using the mouse and starting to move around the desktop, and how to get into the internet and things like that. Software skills is really focused more on things like Microsoft Office or Google Docs, using Word or using Pages or all of those. And then technology in daily life, and this one is growing. Northstar actually adds stuff into their program on a relatively regular basis. So the technology in daily life is, how do I use social media? How do I do career searches? They just added one on online medical appointments, and I can't remember right now what exactly that's called, but there's a bunch of different lessons within each of these different modules. So what you would see if you were a learner and you logged into Northstar and you'd already been using Northstar a little bit, this dashboard, this colorful picture you're seeing at the left side of my screen is a learner dashboard. And the learner dashboard shows you just how I have done in my essential computer skills module. And it shows you all of the lessons that I'm taking and what I've done in the lessons, and then how I have done on all of the different assessments. And if I were able to scroll down, and I'll show it to you in a minute, but if I were able to scroll down, you would also see how did I do in the essential software skills module, and then in the technology and daily life module. So as a learner, every time I come into Northstar, I get into my dashboard that shows me where I've started, what I'm working on, what my assessments look like, etc. And again, Northstar is adding and adding and adding more tools on a regular basis. So assessments, then we've got our NSOL, my Northstar Online Learning. That's the part that most of us think about when we think about Northstar. Those are the online modules. And then we talked a little bit about the Northstar curriculum. And the Northstar curriculum is used by a couple of our libraries, and it is curriculum that is written out based on all of the skills for each Northstar lesson. And it is so easy to follow. It is amazing to me, like how organized and well done it is. I'm not going to talk about it much more than that today, because again, you need space. You can do it one-on-one, you can do it in small groups, but for the most part, you need staff to run it. You need space in your library to be able to hold a class. I'm wondering though, and I think Maria might be using it, and I think somebody else was talking about possibly using it. And you can just raise your hand or put a thumbs up. Is there anybody else planning on or hoping to be able to use the Northstar curriculum for in-person training? I see a couple of people are perfect. And it's really a wonderful, easy way to start doing digital literacy instruction in your library. And there is a lesson workshop that I'm going to run for y'all on that. And I'm just going to say, for a lot of learners, in-person is better instruction. It's easier, Maria's nodding, it's easier for folks to simply follow along and pay attention. I mean, some of you might be sitting there right now texting on your phone while you're, I understand that. When we're not in person, other things are going on. And some people just need that in-person instruction to stay on task. Let's say it is focused for adults. You would definitely need to modify some of the examples and the whys when you're teaching, like, oh, we're going to learn how to do this, and here's what you might use it for. You would probably need to modify that for a younger audience. But I would see it as a really good jumping off point, at least of the skills somebody should know to be able to do online, to be able to have some digital literacy knowledge. Alex, you agree about that whole in-person thing? Is that where the totally agree came from? And then tons of kids who do not know how to computer. All kinds of people. When I started doing digital literacy instruction for the Plainfield Public Library, it was during the pandemic, and I had to do it remotely. And there was one session where more than half of my students were moms or grandmas whose kids had to do remote school, and they had no idea how to use a computer, and they started taking these classes because they just needed to. We get adults that just, I need to know how to email or text, any of those things, because that's how my grandkids start to communicate. So you have all different audiences that this should help out. Bonnie, yeah, for older teens, it'll be a little bit easier to engage with. I'd love to do class with older teens on social media, media literacy, safety. Telly, we are working on an online safety course, one of our workshops in a box. And for those of you who have not heard that term before, I'll at the end of this lesson review where that came from. But yes, there's not enough librarians in schools to teach those skills. Those are such very important skills for our kids, for ourselves, and then also just for parents to understand as well. So I would love to see, if you start creating stuff, please share, and we'll share what we've got as well. Other questions on Northstar curriculum? All right. So far, everything we've discussed is either what the heck is Northstar, so that I can understand it and use it in my library, or it's been learner facing. And what I mean by learner facing is what can learners do in Northstar, or how are they going to learn? So how are they going to get into Northstar and learn the online lessons? We talked about letting them take assessments. We talked about in-person instruction. I want to take a step back and now talk about how you as staff in a library who have Northstar will be able to start using Northstar as well. But I'm going to go into chat real quick. Oh, Emily has to restart her computer. Past 5 years in person. Yes, it takes a lot to teach classes over Zoom, especially computer classes. They have to be really well thought out and really well planned. And even still, in person is so much easier to support people with. So absolutely. These sessions that are run through the Labor and Literacy Library program, because we're offering them to all of New Jersey on, shoestring, they had to be done remote. It would be so much nicer if we could all sit in a computer room together and I could log everybody into Northstar and we could all do this stuff together. But sometimes you make do with what you can. In person is always a bit more engaging. It's always easier to see your users and to know that they're following you or they're totally lost. So I do agree that an in-person class is definitely going to be a lot more helpful, but it takes more people, which is tough. And that does make it hard. So we still want to be able to support our patrons with anything we can offer them. And having the state library give us Northstar licenses so that all we've got to do is make sure our patrons know how to use it is a super helpful way to get started. It's going to bring people in our library. And then it might show, hey, we really all do need more digital literacy. And now we need funding to do more digital literacy and try to get all of that. So these are really good points that everybody is bringing up. So let's talk again about now using Northstar, each of you using Northstar as the staff that's running Northstar in your library. So again, does anybody know their Northstar login and password? It's okay if you don't. It's not a problem. We will get you there. I mean, I don't necessarily have it, but we'll figure out how to help you get it. This session is being recorded. I have to double check and be sure now. Yes, this session is being recorded. Additionally, we're going to make sure that you have access to the slides from it so that you have some things to review as needed. So we're going to go through these parts of Northstar again. If you can't get into Northstar right now, it's okay. I will help you out through it. Okay, first important thing to know about getting into Northstar is that Northstar is not the name of the website. I see Maria laughing because, yeah, it messed us all up when we first tried to start using Northstar. The name of the website is digitalliteracyassessment.org. And maybe Sarah can put that into the chat for me. Digitalliteracyassessment.org, all one word. That's what's going to bring you to Northstar. Now, if you already bookmark Northstar and are the digitalliteracyassessment.org site with your specific URL, perfect, it's still going to get you in there. But to find out or to get into Northstar, you're going to go to digitalliteracyassessment.org to be able to get in there. That website is the same whether you are a library staff using Northstar. And the reason I'm using the term staff is that's what Northstar calls the people who run Northstar for the library. You have a staff ID in Northstar. So you're going to use that, and your learners can use that as well, although I'm going to actually tell you that you want them to use your Northstar URL that we'll look at in a little bit. So we go to digitalliteracyassessment.org and we log in. When we as staff log in, your screen probably will look like this. And it's going to always come up to a screen that gives you, pardon me, that gives you your location pin. The location pin is one way to start linking learners to your specific library Northstar account. I never, ever, ever do it this way because I find it easier to show them and I'm going to apologize everybody because I cannot draw with a mouse. I find it easier to show them, oh, and it's just, oh, look at what a mess I'm making. And this is really bizarre that my mouse is pointing over these, but it's not drawing on them. Below where it says the location pin, it is also going to give you a line that says bookmark the page to take you to, and then it is your location specific URL. So those of you earlier who had asked me, Kristen, how do I put Northstar on my computers? That's where you're going to find your URL. You're welcome. Does that make sense so far? So in our computer labs at Plainfield, we have that bookmarked. We actually have the URL on the desktop. So that's how everybody is getting into the Plainfield's Northstar account. And the reason why I want them to link back to my account is so that I can start tracking them. I can see what they're doing. I can help them. I can report on how many Northstar users are working with Northstar through my library. I can report on all of the tests that they've taken. So having that location specific URL is going to be super helpful. And that's the one that you're going to want to bookmark. Again, the way we got there, we went to digitalliteracyassessment.org. I logged in. I log in as Kristen Brogy. It knows I work for Plainfield. It gives me my location pin. It also gives me a proctor pin because I have completed the proctor training. We're not going to really worry about that at this moment. Once you log in, across the top of Northstar, and I think what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to show you my Northstar in a minute. I'm still going to keep it this way so that I'm not showing other people's personal information, but we'll get into my account in a couple minutes. So what you can see at the very top of the Northstar image that I'm showing you is you can see this blue bar, and the blue bar across the top lets you look at learners in the admin portal. Does everybody see that? It says learners, and it's a little hard to read. Assessments, reports, location, info, and resources. So when you log into the admin portal, if you want to look at your learners, you click learners. If you want to look at reports for your library, you click reports. So those are how it breaks out. And then we'll talk about the resources, which is just an amazing, amazing place to find information. We'll talk about resources in a little bit. But with the learners, you can see how much they've used Northstar. You can see each specific learner as we start to click. If we were to click on each learner, you would then be able to look at their specific records, see what assessments they've taken, whether they've passed, if it's proctored, if it's unproctored, what lessons they're working on. There is also an invite a learner. And I am actually, now that I said I wasn't going to, I am going to pop into my Northstar. So give me one moment, please. I'm going to log in. I'm going to look at learners, but then I'm going to filter for myself just so that you can, or I will just, yeah. There's some other information in here that I just want to hide real quick. So I log in. You're going to see my location URL, my proctor pin. I'm going to go ahead to my learners. I'm going to filter for myself. All right, and I actually have a few different accounts. I took all of these assessments, and one of the things I love about, I'll get to that in a second, Bonnie, that I love about Northstar, because I can never remember pictures, is I can just point to every picture and it's going to show me that Kristen took all of these assessments and passed them, but never had a proctor. I would know they were proctored because they would show up in a different color instead. So I have, thank you. It looks like you have to take a proctor. You do have to take a proctor test in order to become a proctor. There's a, I believe it's a 15-minute video that you watch, and then you are asked 10 questions. And once you pass those 10 questions, that's when you get your proctor pin. Does Northstar create a profile the first time a learner? And can a learner take an assessment and remain anonymous? Those are both fabulous questions. I'm going to answer those in 1 second, Alex. Did I answer though? Yes, about the proctor questions. Any other questions on becoming a proctor? And there is another Northstar session I'm going to teach y'all on how to become a proctor, but any basic questions? Okay. So to become a learner in Northstar, if you want to have people become learners, you can invite them to be a learner. You would then create their account. You would put in their first name, their last name, and email address. We'll talk about tags in another session, and invite the learner. If I had put Alex's email address in here, Alex would receive an email saying he had a Northstar invitation. He would have to log in. He would have to go into that email, click the link, and create a password that would allow him to become one of my learners. But Alex asked a great question, and he said, I don't want anybody to see my assessment results. That's not really what he said, but that's just how I'm going to explain it. I'm not logged into Northstar right now. So I'm back at the digitalliteracy.assessment.org. I'm not at the Plainfield URL. If I go to Northstar that way, and I scroll down, I have to remember where they put it. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have to scroll down. It's at the top. I could take an assessment from the Northstar website, then it comes to the bottom, and I could click on there and I could take an assessment there. If I take an assessment there, I am not logged in, and so nobody will know my assessment results because I don't know who it is. It's just a sample assessment, and but it's not proctored, and I'm not going to get a certificate, and I'm not going to get a badge. Did that give you what you were looking for though, Alex? Perfect. Any other questions so far on getting into Northstar? And then we looked at our learners up at the top. You cannot bypass the email. What we do at Plainfield is we teach someone how to create a Gmail account. So we walk through it with them, because I'm going to be honest, if somebody doesn't have an email in this day and age, they need one, and I want to help them know how to use it, and I want to help them get it. So we have them create a Gmail account, and that way they can then use that for Northstar. They can also start using that to learn the email session. So that's how we do that. That's a great question. Thank you, Maria. Okay, let me just minimize this. We'll see where we are in PowerPoint now. Assessments, we are going to look at assessments in more detail in another session, but I'm going to show you how to at least start an assessment today so that you can start practicing and trying them out. The assessments tab gives you information on proctoring as well as viewing the assessment results for all of your students. And it allows you to print out your student certificates. Your students, or your learners, excuse me, have to have you at the library or you as their proctor print out a certificate for them. They can't print it on their own. And that's just how it's set up with Northstar. There are also two other sections. There's a reports section that's in Northstar. I'm going to be perfectly honest, the Northstar reports are not very detailed. The Northstar reports, I think you get more information from clicking on learners and clicking on assessments than you do from the reports, but you can see the assessments that are taken and the percentage of assessments passed in there. For the more detailed information, you would go into the actual learner. No problem, Bonnie. And then the location info tab. The location info tab in Northstar is where you're going to find out. So if you have a login, the location info is where you're going to log in to find out who your admins are. If you see more information in location info than a list of admins for Northstar, that means you're the Northstar admin. So that is the next one. And then the last really important tab in Northstar is resources. Resources is my absolute favorite tab in the Northstar portal. It's actually the most overwhelming to start, but I find myself in this tab all the time. I might be able to answer Alex's question from this tab, but I'm not sure the one about getting college credits. So there's a couple resources I want to point out to you. The first one is down here at the bottom, the NJSL videos. These are 2-3 minute videos, little tiny bite-sized videos on how to complete different tasks in Northstar. It ranges from how do you show somebody, you've got a new learner, how do you show them how to use Northstar, the online learning? So that's going to walk you through how to do that. How do you set up a user? How do you proctor an assessment? All of those little videos are in there. So even though we're talking about how to do some of this, you're going to need to review it because by the time you really get it started, you might not remember it all. Some of the other ones that I tend to use a lot, there's a link for creating support tickets. This is important because although I know a lot about Northstar, I just work for Plainfield Public Library. We use Northstar, and because we've been using Northstar for a while, I know a lot about it, but if you have questions you can't find in your resources, using their support ticket system is actually a really great way to get an answer. Not that I'm not willing to try, but it is a really super helpful way for you all to get answers. And then there is also other resources that is where you can retake proctor training. You can find the Northstar standards for each course that I mentioned to Alex. In these other resources, there are also printables that allow you to print out flyers about Northstar. So those of you who are asking about how do I advertise? So when I clicked on the other resources and it shows me all of that information, I can create a Northstar poster that's 8.5 by 11. I edit the PowerPoint with my library information, create wrap cards. So these are great ways to start advertising Northstar in your library with your library specific URL. We mentioned paper screeners for assessments earlier. They are also in this other resources. So the resources section that's here in the Northstar admin portal is so helpful for finding pretty much anything you need. So we looked at our resources. Before I let you guys go, I just want to show you how to take a Northstar online learning lesson, just how to get into it. Who remembers what I want to bookmark at my library to make sure that my learners are linked to my Northstar account? Or at least where you can find that information, even if you don't remember what I was calling it. Glitzy, you're on mute. I don't know if you're trying to tell us. She's like, oop, I got caught.
I'm saying it out loud. I just don't remember that. I know it has to have your library in the URL. Oh, hold on.
Perfect. And does anybody remember?
It's on that main page at the bottom.
You got it. So you log into Northstar, that first page in the admin portal is going to give you that, they call it a location specific URL. So what we're going to do is if I was a Northstar learner this is the first page that would come up when I logged into Northstar. Because I'm a staff member, the first page that comes up is my personal Northstar information, which is why I keep clicking on other things, but I don't think you're all gonna try to be me as a proctor. When you log into Northstar, it's going to bring you into that same screen. For you logged in as a staff to get to the Northstar online learning, what you would do is you would go ahead and click your username at the top corner. Once you click your username at the top corner, you're going to choose Northstar Online Learning. And when you choose Northstar Online Learning, this is actually the first page that comes up no matter who you are. Northstar keeps track for its reporting purposes of if you're using Northstar in the library that you are assigned to, that you're using Northstar with, or are you doing it somewhere else? I actually am not in the library right now. So I'm somewhere else, and I'm going to click save. My learner portal dashboard comes up. The outside ring, I'm sorry, that's the inside ring. The inside ring shows you how much of the Northstar practices I have done. The outside ring shows you my assessment scores. So I did pretty well on the basic computer skills, not quite as well on internet basics. And it again shows you that I slacked off and didn't take all of the actual classes for it. So no matter what, you come into Northstar here, I'm on my Kristen Brogy dashboard so that I do not forget. And I think it was Glitza. I want to change my Northstar to Spanish. Once you log in, it wasn't you, I forget who it was, and I apologize. You're still on mute.
It was me though.
I click, okay, Maria, I click on profile, and then I click on Latin American Spanish.
Okay, wait a minute, I'm lost. Where did you get to that portion of?
From your dashboard.
Oh, so personal profile.
So you go into online dashboard, you click on profile, Latin American Spanish. If you do this for yourself, it will change everything into Spanish. So when I click update, everything in here is in Spanish. So I can now go to my dashboard and see all of it in Spanish as well. So my online learning, most of it will be in Spanish. It is taking, Northstar just started less than a year ago translating all of its lessons to Spanish. Not all of the lessons are currently available. I believe they have finished all of the computing basics, and they have gotten partway through internet. I don't think they have gotten through all of the Word, PowerPoint, Excel. I forget what this is called right now that it's Spanish. But this is going to change the assessments as well as the lessons into Spanish. I think they've been talking about doing it in another language as well. And the reason it's taking them so long is that they were building something that would allow it, make it easier to translate to other languages. I don't know what the plans are, but I know that that was part of the conversation. I need to change this back to English so I can talk to you all a little bit more. So I'm going to my profile because I remember that that little picture means profile, and I know Inglés is English. And the darker button is probably the click here to make that happen. And then, phew, back in English. So we got into our Northstar lessons by going into our login name, and instead of choosing admin portal, we went into the online learning. It's going to again probably ask me where I am, or it's, yep, no, it didn't. Perfect. And then it's bringing me into my lesson. If I wanted to look at the basic computer skills lessons, I'm going to click on lessons. When I click on lessons, it shows me that Kristen has done and passed a bunch of the basic computer skill lessons. It shows me the standards tab, which shows me all of the questions that yesterday I purposely got wrong on this test. So the circle that says Kristen did well, that was my best score. This shows me my most recent results. So it's showing me that of these standards, Kristen has no idea the difference between the types of devices. But it also allows me to then go directly to the practice session for that. And I'm gonna mute this right now. When you go into lessons in Northstar, the first time you start using it, Northstar is actually going to give you an overview of how to use Northstar. So it's going to explain the next button. It's going to explain the play audio so it will replay. I didn't turn on the volume because I wanted to be able to talk to you while this was happening. Anytime there's text on the screen, Northstar talks to you as well. You can view other lessons in here. So it gives your user an overview of how to use Northstar for its online learning. There's interactive elements for you to practice in there. Some of the lessons have a YouTube video. That's what we're looking at right now. And then each section has a set of review questions that you can then go through. One of the important things to know about Northstar is it's going to tell you where to find the right answer. There is nowhere in Northstar that gives you the correct answers to the review questions for the lesson or to the assessment questions for the tests. And that's because they believe it's important for students to learn the information versus learn the assessment. As a matter of fact, students can take these review questions as much as they want. They can only take the assessment twice a day. Again, figuring that it'll make it a little bit harder for them to memorize the correct answers. So there's all kinds of things in there with those lessons. I'm going to go back to my online learning. I'm trying to get back to my dashboard because what I want to be able to show you it's trying really hard. There we go. So from the dashboard, we looked at practice, standards, and then my assessment history shows you all of my lovely scores of my assessment. If I go back to the full dashboard, again, we started our lesson by clicking on lessons. We could also start by clicking on take assessment. So if I were to take an assessment, that's going to come up on the screen. The only reason you're seeing that red line is because I am logged in as a proctor. And Northstar is saying, Kristen, if you leave this open on your screen, somebody can get to your proctor information. So if I was leaving Northstar for somebody else to use, I would just have to log out of here. But if I click on assessments, it's going to let me then start taking any of the assessments as well. And it's checking right now. You can't hear the violin trying to get me to make sure that I have sound, and then it'll just walk through the assessments. So what I really want to make sure that all of you do is that you are able to, or that you try taking an assessment and you try taking an online learning so that you're comfortable with it. Before I finish up, there we go. Before I finish up, you're going to try, not today, you're not going to try it for yourself with me right now, but before I talk about our next steps, I do want to ask anybody what kinds of questions you have. What is it that you still feel like you need to know about Northstar, you know, or are you ready?
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Maria.
so for the Spanish, if I've got somebody coming in doing a Spanish assessment, they do the test. I have to change the profile back to English in order to review what they have learned. How does that work?
Okay, they will see their profile. When you change it to Spanish, their profile is always in Spanish. So if you're looking at it, their results on their profile, you're going to see it in Spanish. However, your profile is in English. So when you go into the dashboard, I'm sorry, the admin portal. In your admin portal, you would go to the learners, find that learner. So you'd find them in there, and then you can look at their assessment results in English while they're looking at it in Spanish. That's a good question. Nobody's asked that, but I just know that there's a distinction between the two. Great question. Other questions? All right, if you have other questions, you can unmute, you can drop them into chat. I just want to talk a little tiny bit about next steps. So I'm going to share this again. And for those of you who weren't with us at the very beginning of this session, the program that this Northstar training that you are attending is part of a partnership between Plainfield Public Library and the New Jersey State Library. We are running a program called Labor and Literacy Library Program that supports libraries across New Jersey with all different kinds of tools, workshops, etc., to help grow your digital literacy programming. So if you want to become involved in that, and we'll share a link and we'll share more information later, we can get you involved in that. All of the sessions that we run for the Labor and Literacy Library Program are recorded. Those of you who are watching the recorded session, if you complete the steps on the left side of the screen in the blue, that will make sure we know you viewed the recorded session. And then once you do that, we can make sure you get your badges, etc. The next steps for others, Maria, can you mute real quick for me? I think that's
sorry.
That's it happens. The next steps for everybody here is feel free to reach out about the Labor and Literacy Library Program. Also, we have sessions coming up on supporting your learners using Northstar. So that's how do I really create learners? How do I work with them in terms of understanding the dashboard? Maria's question about, oh, so if I'm going to go over the assessment results with them, like things like that. And then administering assessments in Northstar really is, how do you become a proctor? Why do you proctor? How do you run proctoring sessions? Proctoring sessions can be held in person. They can also be held online. What's interesting about doing an online proctoring session is it makes it super easy for you to proctor a whole bunch of people, even if they're sitting in a classroom with you. So Maria might decide, I'm going to do an online proctoring session. I'm going to get all of my people and click one button as opposed to typing her password into 10 computers. So there's a bunch of ways of proctoring that if you're going to use that, you can definitely, you should definitely start thinking about taking the assessments course. And then if you think you're going to use the Northstar curriculum, there is a lesson for a workshop for that as well that you might decide you want to take, or you might just want to come hang out so that you hear more in case maybe in a year you might decide to do that or something. So those are our next steps. I do want to say thank you to everybody. Our contact information is at the bottom of the screen right now. That goes to myself, it goes to Sarah and Colleen at Plainfield. It's way faster to send an email than to try to call or contact or send or direct email one of us. I haven't looked at my email since 9:45. Sarah probably has hers open right now and is answering other things while in a session. So using that email address just makes it a little easier to get in touch with us. I am going to say thank you to all of you for your time, such great questions. If you have other questions, other information you're looking for, feel free to stay on. If not, have a great day.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
I do have one more question for you.